What's up guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hey, I'm Lo and my husband and I are working on paying off almost $400,000 of debt, not including our mortgage. So in a video I made several months back, I don't remember exactly when it was or what video it is. I know I mentioned the FIRE movement or FIRE, and what that stands for is financial independence, retire early. If you frequent the personal finance space here on YouTube or other social media, you may have come across this. I think it's probably highly likely you've come across this if you spend a lot of time in the personal finance space. But there's basically two pieces to it, which is the financial independence, which is the FI, and then the RE, which is retire early. So FI, financial independence, as I've been thinking about this more and learning more about this movement, financial independence is just retirement. Because what financial independence means is that you can stop working and you have enough saved to continue living off of your investments and retire. And so many people's goal, I think everyone's goal to an extent, is to hit financial independence. The difference with the FIRE movement, the way I see it, is that it's the retire early piece. It's when are you hitting this financial independence? Are you hitting it at traditional retirement age of 65 or 67 or whatever retirement age will be when us younger folks hit retirement? Or are you trying to hit that early, and people in the FIRE movement generally are trying to hit that much, much earlier, like in their 40s, 30s, or even 20s. So like I mentioned, I said in a video a while back, we weren't thinking of, pursuing FIRE, financial independence, retire early. As I learned more and more about it, it's become really interesting to me. And I think what I've learned about it is a lot of people who are doing this, they're not actually looking to retire, like sit on a beach for the rest of their life and not really do much of anything. They're looking to have their life become more flexible, and they're looking to be work optional. So get to a point where if they want to quit their job, they could, you have options. Or if you want to quit your current job and do something that's more of a passion that's not going to make as much money or any money to start, then you would have the option to do that. So I've been listening to a lot of personal finance podcasts for a while now, and one of them that I listened to recently was this episode from a podcast called ChooseFI. And what they talked about in that podcast is the different stages of FI. And I thought it was a really, really great podcast. I thought it was a good summary of the different stages. And so what I thought I would do in today's video is go through all the stages that they laid out in that episode and check off the things that we've accomplished and look at what we have ahead of us if we actually want to pursue this financial independence or financial independence retire early. If you want to check out the original podcast, I'd highly recommend it. It's an awesome episode, so I will link it in the video description. But anyway, I took notes when I was listening to this podcast, and from my notes, there are 17 items on this checklist. So without taking any more time for an intro, let's jump right into it. Okay, so the first stage of FI that they listed is hair on fire, and the second one is awareness. So these are separate things, but we kind of came to these around the same time. So hair on fire just means like everything's coming crashing down, you can't afford your bills, you're behind, like this way of managing money is not working, isn't sustainable, and it's coming back to bite you. And then awareness is more just like kind of becoming aware of your financial situation, where everything's pretty good, it's not great, but it's good enough. Nothing's coming crashing down, but you're kind of noticing that your financial situation isn't where you'd like it to be. So that's the awareness phase as they described it. I think they were also getting at the awareness of the concept of like improving your financial situation, of investing more and getting your debt paid off, and becoming like, conscious about this possibility of financial independence before age 67, or also just like not living in the dark about what your financial situation is. So I would say we have a check and check on those first two, because our hair was on fire, we were drowning in debt about 2 years ago, and we were paying everything on time, but like we just felt stuck. And we were, becoming more aware of how bad our financial situation was, and we were, buying things we didn't need or like or want, and not using our money in a way that was benefiting us as much as it could in the present, let alone the future. And so I would say we have hit both of those so far. The next stage that they list for the FI checklist is figure out what your financial independence number is, which they define as taking what your annual expenses are and multiplying that by 25. So our annual expenses, if you take out all of the investing and all of the debt payments, assuming, our debt gets paid off by the time we hit financial independence. Our annual expenses are about $75,000 to $80,000 a year. And so if you multiply that times 25, you get around $2 million. So I don't know that that's the number that we would go for, but based on their calculation, our financial independence number would be about $2 million. The next stage of FI that they list is when you get your employer match for your 401k. So my husband has been eligible for an employer match on his 401k since he started at his job, and we have always taken advantage of that match ever since it was available. When I was at an employer, I had a profit share, so it's like an employer match, but you're not required to put anything in to get your match, and it's only funded once a year. And so I got mine, you know, without having to do anything, but we've always taken advantage of his employer match, and so I would say we have a check there as well. Stage 5 is having an emergency/crisis fund of at least $1,000. We have pretty much always had about $1,000 in our bank account. When we started our debt-free journey in January of 2020, we had about $2,000 or $3,000, and since then, over the last 18 months, 19 months, we've built that fund up to $20,000. So we definitely have a check in that category as well. The next stage is hitting a zero net worth or back to broke. So if you have been following our story, I make net worth updates every single month, and our goal for 2021 is to hit that $0 or $1 net worth. So that is something we have not accomplished yet, but even before I came across this podcast was something that we had as our goal and have been working towards. So hopefully that's something we can check off before the end of the year. Stage 7 of FI is debt-free besides the mortgage. So as I said at the beginning of this video, my husband and I, since January 2020, have been working on paying off almost $400,000 of debt besides our mortgage. And so currently that is down to about $300,000, and we hope to have the rest of it paid off in the next 5 years or so, maybe 4. We'll see how everything goes, but we are working on that, but that's not something we're gonna be able to check off for a while. Number 8 is the first year you max out your 401k. So that is a milestone I'm really excited about because I think we're gonna hit that this year for my husband. We are on track to max out his 401k for the first time ever. Previously, we've only contributed up to the employer match, but this year for 2021, we are putting, we are pulling $750 per paycheck, and that will get us to $19,500 by the end of the year, which is the max you're allowed to contribute to a 401k. So fingers crossed that we're able to stay on track with that and keep those withholdings as they are, and we'll max out his 401k this year for the first time. All right. Stage 9 for the stages of FI is when you hit that 5-figure net worth. And so that means a net worth of $10,000 or more. So as I said, we're still at negative. We haven't even hit that 0 yet. So that's something we can look forward to. Maybe we'll get there by the end of this year, but it may more likely be sometime in 2022. The next stage of FI is when you open a Roth IRA. So my husband and I both opened IRAs in 2017, I think it was. Yeah, it was 2017 because it was the year we turned 30. And so I opened a Roth IRA and my husband opened a traditional IRA because we just weren't really sure exactly what we wanted to do. He had an old 401k that he was going to roll over into an IRA, and it was a traditional 401k, so he rolled it over into a traditional IRA, and then we've just kind of left it there. And then for me, I had my Roth IRA and I was contributing to it, and then he was contributing to his employer 401k at his new employer. So I have a Roth IRA that I've been contributing to something to since 2017. I maxed it out for the first time this year, and that's kind of like part 2 of this stage, is maxing out your Roth IRA for the first time. So I can check both of those off for me. For my husband, he does not have a Roth IRA currently, but we are planning on opening one for him for 2022. And I think we might roll over his traditional IRA into the Roth and start contributing to the Roth IRA for him. Yeah, we're still working on that plan. That's for next year, but you guys know me, I'm a planner, and so we're always looking ahead. So I would say we have like half credit on this because I have a Roth IRA and I maxed it out this year, but my husband does not. All right, the next stage, stage 11, is when you hit that 6-figure net worth, so $100,000 net worth or more. Again, we're not even at 0, so not something we've hit yet, but we'll get there. All right, step 12 of FI is ChooseFI. And the way they define this is basically you get to the point where your retirement accounts are large enough that if you never contributed a single dollar, then they would be enough to retire on when you hit retirement age. So retirement accounts are meant to be invested, and so they grow over time. So let's say you're, 35 years old and you have $250,000 in your retirement accounts, which is much more than we have. This is not an example based on our personal numbers, but let's say you're that person that's been good about contributing to retirement and you have $250,000 saved for retirement at age 35. If you just leave that invested in the stock market, by the time you hit age 65, that will be worth just over $2.7 million, assuming an 8% rate of return. So depending on how much money you want to have at retirement, depends on when you hit this ChooseFI number, but it just means basically that you can stop contributing to your retirement accounts and just let that money coast, just let it grow until you hit retirement age, and it'll be there waiting for you when you're ready to retire. Now, this ChooseFI for me and my husband seems a little bit out of reach right now. I know it's not, and I know things can change quickly, and as we get our debt paid off and are spending less money paying debt and more in investing, it'll pick up that pace, but we still have a number of years before we're debt free completely. So anyway, at 34, my husband and I are both 34, we have just over $70,000 saved for retirement. So we're not only not anywhere close to ChooseFI, but we are like behind for traditional retirement if we contributed regular amounts every single month until we hit retirement, let alone stopping contributions before retirement. So we would have to really pick up the pace if we want to get to any of these goals, that ChooseFI number or anything beyond that I'm about to talk about. But at the same time, I didn't think we'd be able to pay off $100,000 of debt in our first 2 years of our debt-free journey, and we're gonna hit that in a few months. So I don't wanna have a closed mind and just be negative, and that's part of why I felt like maybe 6 months ago, or whenever I first came across this FIRE movement, that this wasn't for us, is because I felt like it wasn't possible for us, not so much that I wasn't like interested in it, but then I just realized that that's really having like a scarcity mindset and being very negative and being like, no, that's for other people who don't have six-figure student loan debt, or that's for other people who are willing to live a lot more frugally than I am, and I'm not willing to give up certain things that they are. And the thing is, like, just because you are working on financial independence and maybe you hit it at like 45 or 50 or 55 instead of 65, like if you hit financial independence at 55, that's 10 years early. Like you would have the option to retire 10 years before you would otherwise. And a lot of people don't even have enough money saved for retirement at retirement age. Most of the country doesn't have enough saved. So if this pushes us to kind of go for something we think is unattainable, then we'll probably be ahead of where we would have been otherwise. And that's worst case scenario, and best case scenario is we hit it and we have a lot more options at a lot younger age. So the next stage they listed is stage 13, and that is half FI. So that's when you have, your FI number, like we said, and I think it was step 3. What are your annual expenses, and times that by 25? Well, if you just times that by 12.5 and you have that much saved, that's half FI. They make a good point in the podcast, which is if you hit this half FI, you're really more than halfway there because of compound interest. And so, but they call it half FI. Okay, this next one I really like, and it's number 14, and it's called Barista FI or Burger Flipping FI. And basically what it means is you have enough saved that you can cut back on your income and save less and still get to financial independence. So you're not necessarily at financial independence, you still need to work some, but you can work a job that you want to work, or that's more fun to work, or that pays a lot less and has a lot more flexibility or less hours, and still keep moving towards that financial independence, because you don't need to contribute a lot more, if anything, to your investments for retirement. All right, and then the last 3 stages, 15, 16, and 17, are lean FI, FI, and fat FI. So these are all, kind of ranges within financial independence. So if you do your annual expenses kind of on the lower side, like for us, our annual expenses are about $75,000 a year. And right now we're really not taking like vacations or doing a lot of activities and things. So that would be maybe more our FI number. And if we really cut back a lot, maybe, for a lean FI number, it would be more like $65,000 a year. And then maybe for fat FI, it would be more like 85, 90, maybe even $100,000 a year. And that would give us a lot more room in our budget to do extra fun things like vacations and such. So lean FI, FI, and fat FI are just kind of like the range of financial independence for, do you want to be really frugal when you retire early, or do you want to live luxuriously and take a lot of vacations vacations and have room for, you know, lots of giving and stuff like that. And so if you kind of, you know, lean towards that side, then you'd be more on like the fat buy side. So those are all the stages of financial independence according to this ChooseFI podcast. Again, I didn't come up with these. These are amazing. I really enjoyed the episode. If you want to check it out, it's linked in the description. I really appreciate these guys going through it and really breaking it down for me, because I found this really helpful as I'm trying to absorb this concept of financial independence, retire early, and I'm really into it. I really like it. I like having options. I think that the thing that was so painful about having so much debt is you felt like you had no options. And I don't ever want to feel that way. I want to have as many options as I can so I can live the life I want to live, because life's too short to, you know, live a life that you don't want. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys are pursuing financial independence, or even if you're not, let me know. Have you guys hit any of these stages? Where are you in these stages? When I first listened to the podcast, I was like, oh, we're not gonna have hit any of these. And we've hit a few of them. So I'm really excited. I plan to do periodic updates, I think, to kind of, you know, when we hit some of these milestones, tell you guys which other ones we've been able to check off. And I'm really excited to share this new kind of piece of our financial journey with you. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. And if you want to watch us pay off debt, pursue financial independence, and just try to figure out how to live a happy life while doing all that, then make sure you hit the red subscribe button. I'd love to have you as a subscriber, and I'll see you guys soon in my next video. Bye.